One, two, three. Happy Friday, everyone. We are definitely in the green today for the indexes. Usually about this time of the day, that's when I stop trading. We'll see how good this goes. This is we're still working on some things for my webinar. Let's see if I can share this screen with the webinar team. If it starts lagging, I'll have to turn it off. Okay, learning, you can turn your mic on, or you can ask some questions so we can get through this. For you guys showing up, this is a webinar that I do with my group. We're a little slow right now. I think it's holidays in the Euros, so. But I thought I'd still put this on the stream because there's a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions. Mainly from learning, that's right. You guys aren't seeing the questions or comments from my webinar part because they are on a Cisco platform. So we have a TV chat here, which is kind of hysterical, actually. It has 89 people, and nobody ever talks. So I'm pretty much certain they're bots. So I'm guessing both the guys on the webinar are not talking. Okay. So for you guys joining, if you don't know what this is our strategy that we use in my community. It's something that I built. And it's pretty simple. This is risky. This is not. So I actually have a couple more videos that go in depth, but this is mainly more for my webinar. So we're kind of ahead of, the learning curve, or they're trying to get up and to know what's going on with this thing. So their knowledge is getting better. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so from Vincent, can you go in more depth of the multipliers and the tricks with them? Learning is asking, could you go over step by step to explain the question I had in Discord? i.e. go from large time frame to low. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose a ticker. I don't want to choose Bitcoin. I feel like every time we do these streams, it's always Bitcoin. And we could actually do Netflix. So the settings, ignore this part. This is a thing I'm testing right now. But the settings are, you have 390 on your length and 70 on your length. And there's your bars back. I use 390 because it's the stock market time. So it's 6.5 hours. But it works fine with crypto. So 70 has good pairing. So logically, they work very good together. Now, if I want to use the multiplier, I'll change my length on my short to 390. And you see when I do that, it actually makes both of them 390. So the only thing that will change that is if we use the multiplier up here. And we click that up to 2. And basically you can see that the band's expanded. So it's calculating farther back from 390. It's actually looking back at 780. So it's looking at back at 780 candles. Or 780 bars. Okay. So Bitcoin too. Oh, you're killing me. All right. So the big thing that you want to pay attention to is when you keep doing this multiplier, and it doesn't matter which time frame. I know the popular ones were like 1, 5, daily, hour, 30 minutes. As you can see, I have all of them, almost. And of course my 77 one. But these, it works very good when you're using the bands because you can expedite the process of your planning. The trick is to find an option that's low and to get into it, but make sure it's safe. So for instance, with Netflix, it's holding on this deviation right here, and this is a stronger support. Okay. So if we took that back to 1, you can see it's kind of hanging on this deviation. Now, if we switch it to 2, it's confirming that it's hanging on this deviation. Okay. It's hanging on this price right now. I say right now because that could change. So as a programmer, we come up with if statements. So if the price drops past this deviation at 376.44, then it's probably going to go lower. Okay. So we could keep filtering, going up farther and farther out. And you can see how the bands are changing. Now, 2 things this does. It helps us look for strong supports and strong resistance. So if you keep going up, you're looking farther and farther out. So this is actually a strong support line right here. Okay. Because it's confirming on a lot of different time frames. The farther you go out though, you're looking at maybe an 8-hour play or a daily play. Okay, so we're trying to stay realistic as well for but you can do this on a 1-minute time frame and still find out a lot of information. So it doesn't mean that you have to just stick on one multiplier. You can go on multiple different multipliers and it's just looking back. It's just turning the pages in time. It's just looking back, seeing where there's strong supports for this price range. And you can see where the strong resistance levels are. Okay, so this could be, the VWAPs, for instance, are pretty much the checkpoints in stocks. Okay, they are, well, checkpoints in the market. Okay, it's usually where the bots like to buy and sell from. The big institutions, the big spenders. They usually have their bots set on VWAPs at certain time frames. Maybe they're buying on the daily VWAP. Maybe they're buying on the daily or the 1 hour VWAP. You just don't really know for certain. I guess the only way to find out is to see how it reacts to other times it's bounced off that particular VWAP. So this is a VWAP right here, and this is a VWAP right here. Okay, so does that make sense, guys, in the webinar? What I'm talking about? So I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible because it's very easy to get into a situation or a narrative where you're getting overwhelmed with the bands. So that's why I have it on a 1 minute chart. Why? Because a 1 minute chart's very volatile, right? It's going up and down very fast. Sometimes it whipsaws like it did right here, right? It dropped down, but it kind of whipped, and then it swung back up. So it's good to adjust the multiplier to look for these stronger support systems. Okay. So we start on the 1 minute time frame, and then we can plot our plan. So if we want to buy into this trade, we want to make sure it's going to hold. Okay. So we see that this was a strong support at multiplier times 5. Now, please forgive me. Donate, guys, for a new computer. This one's like struggling with streaming for some reason. Yeah, but as you can see here, the price is 37.22. We're gonna put a line on that. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to Now we're gonna go back to a regular defaults, right, which is 390 at 1 and 70. Okay, and we're gonna see if that makes any sense. Okay, so it's still a little question mark on this time frame. So we'll go to the 5 minute. Okay, so we can see that it's kind of holding a strong little pattern here on this deviation. So it's possible it could hold there. Let's try the 10 minute. Okay, the 10 minute looks a little more bearish looking. Still could play, it could be a short play. Let's try the 30 minute. 30 minute still looks bearish. Again, if it goes past this 378, then I could see a higher play off that VWAP. Even the VWAP though is turning down a little bit. Let's look at this. Go to the 77 minute. So 77 minute is showing the same thing. So what happened here is it sold off this bigger deviation. Okay. And this is just regular 390 and 70, but it sold off that. It tested. This was max greed level right here. Okay. Anytime you see on a trade where the play is doing this, where it goes and it tests and it tests and it tests again, that deviation, that's max greed. They're trying to get as much as they can out of there and trap the retailers, which they did. They got them right here again. That was the trap. So this was the mass sell-off that happened. Another trap happened here, but you can always see, where it's getting close to those resistance areas, and it doesn't have to touch completely. It just has to get close enough. Okay, they get an idea that this could get risky, right? So there was the rejection again off that deviation. Okay, so now it's it's in the gray zone is what I call it. So it could whip and push back up again. Okay, but there's something that's keeping this price from moving. Okay, it's stalling somewhere. That's our job as TA guys to find out where it's stalling. Okay, so if we look at the 1 hour, we see we're gradually getting closer to this VWAP. Okay. So what I'm looking at the VWAP is I'm looking at, you know, an area of patterns of where it liked to bounce. Okay. So we'll just keep filtering through. Okay. Here, another rejection at that number. And then we have the actual play for this candle that we were seeing on the 1 minute. Okay. How do you know that's the play? Because where we put our support at on the 1 minute is exactly where it's bouncing off and on. So this is the actual candle off the 1 minute. Okay. If we were to circle this candle right here and go back to the 1 minute, you would see what I'm talking about. See? So that's the candle. And that's where it's testing its, you know, this area. Okay. So it's around lunchtime. It is lunchtime, I believe. So this is where the stock market usually slows down. After like an hour or so, you know, these guys are fat. They like to eat a lot. We have power hour before the stock market closes. So the power hour, we usually see those strong closes, you know, going up or down depending on, you know, which direction it wants to go. Usually you can find that direction on where it's at in correlation with the deviations. You know, if it's down here somewhere, then it's a possible bounce, right? It's going to climb back up. So just some food for thought. The bigger play, whoops, I always do that. The bigger play is this 4-hour time chart. So what's interesting about this 4-hour time chart is we know that if it goes past this, so we have an idea, right? If it goes past this line right here that we marked from the multiple that we did, okay, and you guys might have to rewatch this to see how I did that. Then our next support's going to be right here at this 374. Okay, so once it breaks out of this channel completely, then I have another line here about 369. Okay, so as a trader, we want to get in at the best price available. Okay, we don't really want to trade this area. We want to wait. All right, so that's what. Okay, you were gonna buy me a bike. How funny. That's an insider joke in our group. So if we want to look at, for instance, Bitcoin, right? Because you guys love Bitcoin. The first thing I do is I look at the daily, okay? And you can obviously see that it rejected here. Okay, it didn't necessarily touch, but it did confirm that it was a rejection. Okay, so we definitely wouldn't want to be playing this right now. And it looks like it's going to drop some more. So there's probably somewhere else it's rejecting as well. So we could go to like the 4-hour chart, you know, which I was just on, and we see there was that VWAP is denying this price. Okay, they don't want to buy it any farther. So the next test for it is 65.36. So what I look is, would that be a conclusive area where it likes to bounce? Kind of. There was one right here, you know, so it's possible it could bounce here, but let's keep looking down, right? So I always start up and then I go down. So we see there's a wedge forming with the two VWAPs. So it could just, you know, play ping pong until it drops or goes up. Let's look at the 1 hour. So the 1 hour is still on a support line. But again, if it drops past 66.14. So see what's happening now is you're getting an in detail focused plan on your trade. Okay? Because you're not going to find that information on a higher trade. You're not going to know that it's going to drop this far yet. You know, it could bounce. So that's when we look at those other support lines, which is right here. 6609. So it could bounce, let's just say, back at 6600. So then we go to my secret 77 one. I just think 77 is really good for intraday trading. Okay. And we see it's still kind of hanging on the support. It's in this gray range right now. Okay, and then we'll go to the 30-minute. It's the same story, right? All of them are correlating and doing the same thing. To me, it's consolidating. Okay, 10 minutes sometimes can give us some information if it's going to bounce. So, you know, possible bounce right here. Now, anytime you see the VWAP is in correlation with the bands, that's building a stronger support than if it was like in the middle, right? Or if you see the VWAP way up here, you know, that could be another strong support, or it could drop all the way through. So two important things to see when these VWAPs do this certain pattern with the bands. Okay. So the next one, of course, is the 5-minute. 5-minute is our bread and butter when it comes to, you know, looking at the daily trade. See where the buyers are at. So yesterday the buyers were here. Okay, so we had the sellers this morning. And now we're in a consolidation mode. So you know that because these bands are flattened out, right? They're not really turning up or down. So there's no divergent move. It's just flattening out like a pancake. So now let's go back to that multiplier method. Let's go to the 5-minute. So another thing too, if there's not a lot of volume, right? If there's not a lot of liquidity, you're not going to see those candles in full, right? So if you look at a 1 minute, it's going to look real spotty. Okay. So it's not going to help you see the whole picture, especially with balances and whatnot. So any of those low liquidity assets are not going to show the best on the 1 minute. So that's why we always go back to the 5, right? And if the 5 doesn't look that pretty, then we go to a 10 or a 30-minute, just so we can see where those bounces are. So if we put this back on a multiplier again, let's see if we're on the same track. Now, we just did this with these same bands looking all the way back. So now we're going to do it with the multiplier. I thought I hit settings again. All right. So 390, right? 390 again. Okay. This will all become second nature for you guys once you get the hang of it. So when there's not a lot of action on an asset like Bitcoin right now, it's really not fun to TA, you know, because you can't see what's happening real time. Okay. So we don't really know what's happening. Okay. So we use the multiplier to see where the strong VWAPs are. So we'll do that again. We'll hit it up to 3. Okay. So we see it's acting like a magnet through this VWAP still. Or actually, no, that's the 390. Of course, it's going to act like that. This is a, let's see if 6,500 is a strong support. Yep. So 6,500 is looking like a strong support. There's that other play that we were talking about, the 66. Can you guys see that? That was at 66.16 or something that we saw on the higher time frame. Or was it on the hour? It was on one of those time frames. It was showing 66.16 as a possible support. So you could, what you do is you average out the possibilities, how strong these supports are. Does that make sense? So you're not just saying, okay, 6,500 is the support. Well, 6,600 could be a support as well. So you might want to make sure you have that, you know, on the back of your mind, because let's just say you put an order in at 6,600 and then it goes through that. Well, there you go. But you could also look at it is if you put an order at 6,600 and you have a stop loss, okay, very important. So if I was playing this trade, okay, let me make it how it was looking before. What just happened? Okay, so we'll go to the lowest support we can find, which looks like it's around there. So 66.61, 66.51. So I'll put a line on that, okay? So this is really good for doing stop losses, okay? So this is where my stop loss would be. So why would I put my stop loss there? Well, the first thing I'm looking at is the lower lows, okay? So if this guy goes lower than this one, right, we're going lower, we're going down. So we'd want that to stop out. We don't want to play that. So the next thing we look at too is where we buy it at. It could also be a buy zone, okay? But if it bounces at 6,600, right, because it has before. Let's go back to that multiplier. See, we're doing this all in this 5-minute chart, and we're not having to look through a lot of different charts, okay? So there's the bounce point right there, okay? So we'll put another line in that zone as well, because it's really close to this one. Okay, so this is our potential buy-in. Let's just verify it. Yep. So see the first time it showed, and then the second time it straightened out. That looks like a pretty good zone. So this could be a buy-in zone for us at 66. What did I say? 15, 14, right? In that range. Let's make sure we got the link here. Just make sure. Okay. So basically we just planned our trade out. All right. So we could buy right here, have a stop loss right here, or we could remove this stop loss and put it down here, right? Because if we keep the stop loss right there, that's going to let us know either A, it's going to bounce again, so that would be a double bounce, okay? Or B, it's going to fall through, and then that's our last bit of hope. So we did all this planning on a trade, right? Because it's already going down, okay? We did all this planning on a trade on a 5-minute chart. So that's what's so awesome about using the multiplier, is you're able to plan these trades efficiently without having to look at a lot of different time frames. Right? So if it breaks through all these different time frames, where would be the next support? Well, we do see a deviation down right here at 65.17. You know, that also looked like that was this first time that it made a big bounce through here. Okay, so that could be a stronger bounce next time. Why do we think it's a stronger bounce? Well, if we look right here at this price was 67.58. The next time it went up was 68.11. If it went up again, we're looking at 68.30. So see, it's higher than the previous bands were. So the bands are expanding. If there is an increased volatility and it does bounce, that's what we're looking at, is we're looking at how much higher this could go. Okay? So we're looking at a lot of different plays on one chart. Does that make sense, learning? Is it coming clear to you now? Why the multiplier is so viable? Somebody let Dammy know that we're in a webinar. Someone just private message him, and anybody else that you see struggling, that we're in this webinar. I don't want him to miss it out. So how do you know? Okay, so these are not really doing anything, right? So they're not that enjoyable. But what if you're in a trade and your trade's going up, but you want to know where your bailout is, right? It's the same exact way of doing it prior. You're looking for the high resistance points, okay? So these are our supports that we made, and we made this off logic. We didn't do our own idea, right? There was no emotional game into this play. This was all logics, okay? So we know this is our support play. So now what about our resistance play? Well, we know this is one resistance right here, okay? So let's see where our multiplier's at. Let's start from, so we know the first resistance is matching up, guys, this is important, is matching up with the 390 look back. Do you see how that works? So that confirms that this is a strong area of resistance because we have the multiplier set at 6. That means it's looking back a lot farther, way farther back. And it's averaging, this is a strong area where the price rejects. Okay? The 390 is also giving us that information. So now we have two, viable, we can say, yeah, let's put a line right there. Okay, so now check this out. We're going to go back to, this is going to confirm some things. Okay, so we're going to go back to 1. Why do I have to go back to 1? Just hush, okay? You guys are talking way too much already. So, if we go back to the daily, okay, remember this number here, this line. And lo and behold, what do you see? Well, you do see there's that rejection point. You can see that the VWAP is turning down. Okay. So this is a very strong resistance. I mean, right here, that's what, 20 points from our mark. So you if it wants to pump again, I think it already did. I think we've already tested Bitcoin. So the next move for Bitcoin, it could be another pullback. It could be a short pullback because if you look at even our lowest support, it's still not lower than the previous, right? It's not lower than this. So it could bounce again and try for that resistance area. That's the trick, is finding those strong supports and resistance so we can plan our trade. And another confirmation. Now, you're going to get a lot of coincidental confirmations when you learn this trick. And again, on the 8 hour, we got a VWAP right there, right smack in that area. Okay. The only thing that this helps with is it sees different plays. We know that the VWAP is kind of turning away from this price. That doesn't mean, are you looking which way the deviations are pointing? Well, anytime you see a squeeze like this happen, okay, there's a lot of pressure in one direction. Okay. Now, Bitcoin's volatility has proved me wrong before, but we do know we already hit a resistance point on the daily, so this could be an actual dump. Well, not a big dump, but you definitely don't want to be holding this if you're playing a margin account, okay? Because it could bite you if you're still in a long. And we don't know, we really don't know unless it's like soda or some kind of strong blue chip. These prices, these prices could drop left and right. People were strong on Tesla, and then look what happened with Tesla. It dropped 15% yesterday before the market closed. So that means you wouldn't have had a chance to put your order in. So it's, when these actions happen, we want to scrape or get our profit, and then we want to dump it. We don't want to stay in these trades. Okay? The days of longing crypto are over until it's back into a bull market, and it's not. And it's proving that. And it's not proving that fundamentally because the fundamentals aren't even there right now. Okay? They're still having issues with ETF approvals. So again, we get another confirmation on this VWAP on the 4 hour. this is a very strong support. Okay. Yeah. So this, you know, even the 45-minute, it's showing like the whole play. The whole play. But we will put an if statement, okay? Because like I said, Bitcoin, it has its sporadic ways. It can turn on you quick. You know, there is room for it to go up and retest that resistance if it wants to. Right now, it's you know, it's still hanging on this VWAP. So we can't take it out of this, you know, that it's bullish or bearish yet. Okay? Now, it looks more bearish than it looks bullish. How about that? Right? Because it's already been up. So now it needs to go back down and try again. Some assets don't have to leave the red deviations all the way. They can stay in those channels and just do small pullbacks. Okay, if it's a really healthy asset, right? You know, like Square. You know, Square is a real healthy asset. It doesn't have to drop all the way down. It doesn't have to do a full reversal. So if we go to Square, which I think I can finally move Square into the high floats because it broke 100. Right, so we'll go into a higher time frame and see if we, there we go. So right here, it's hanging into this channel, right? Even though it's in the red, doesn't mean you need to sell it. Okay, it's still a healthy asset. A couple observations is the higher time frame shows the bands pointing way up. Okay, if the bands start going like this, right? So it's going this and then it kind of starts smoothing out like that. That's when I can see maybe a consolidation and then maybe new price discovery. And the price discovery could do what it did right here. So it's the same play, okay? If we look at the previous time it was angling up like this, right? It did eventually start smoothing out. Just right here, and that's where the drop, you know, you start seeing those smooths on the inside of the bands faster than you do on the outside of the bands. So I always look at from the inside to the outside, you know, in both directions. Okay, you'll get the hang of it. It, you know, takes practice. So when you have an asset like Square or any of these assets that have been around for a while, you can look farther. Smoothing, yeah. So when you see smoothing is basically when the price is kind of tampering off, and you'll notice that the bands are not like volatile, right? They don't look as volatile anymore. They're smooth, as in they're flatlining, right? So they're going like this, but sometimes they'll go like this. They'll start smoothing out. Okay. So anytime you see like higher volatility, you know, when you start seeing this nonsense, expect big moves, okay? Now, it could go like this as well. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go down if you see them pointing hard like this, right? Like let's say for instance, let's say your short bands, okay? Your short bands here are pointing down hard. Okay, so there's a lot of sell pressure, right? But let's say your bigger bands are still just set selling, man. If they're still zooming up like this, that means the daily buyers, the big buyers still want this, right? They don't want to, they want to keep holding it. They don't want to sell it yet. Once these bands, however, start pointing down and in correlation with the other bands, that's when you can be concerned. If you're holding on to this and you start seeing that pattern, that's when you want to sell it or think about selling it, right? Because there could be room still. Okay. Anytime the price passes one of these checkpoints on the lines, okay? It has all this room to go up, which it did here. This was the rejection. So you notice we're squeezing, this price is squeezing now, okay? It doesn't have that much room to go up anymore. It's running out of room, okay? So this might try one more time in this price range before finally dipping. So how do we know where that area of dipping could be? Well, if we look at the previous bounces, okay, or the previous rejections, we notice right here, this is pretty strong. There was at one time a rejection on this line, okay, so we can put that there, but man, that is up there, right? So 104 would be their high. So yeah, anything up here, this is records. So well, you know, if we're logically thinking, we would put our line right here first, okay? And then we go back and confirm that. Now, again, we can do the same thing with the multiple on the 5 minute. Okay. So what's interesting too is what we just did here with the 6 hour. Okay, you see that line there? And how on the 5 minute that turned into the big bands. Okay? That's why the default 390 and 70 are so efficient with each other's, because they are basically playing 3 different scenarios at once. Okay, so we're seeing the 2 bands right here, right? We're seeing this bigger, longer play scenario on this candle with these two different bands. But if we, you know, where we put our line at was at the short band deviation, we're also seeing the 5 minute play going on. Was it 5 minute? Yeah. So we're also seeing that inside that 5 minute going on as well. Right, so 6 hour inside the deviation, right? If you move this out though, if I do the outside of this deviation, let me see, they're kind of squeezing on each other. Let me turn this off. All right, so if I get an idea, so 119, let's say 44, right? And then we have the price down here at 58.7, well, let's say 59.59. So let's remember those 2 numbers. I already forgot the first one. 119. All right. So then we go, you know, we put the short bands on because that's what we might be looking for. We'll go back to that 5 minute and look for 119. It's not here, right? You can't see it. But if you look at, let's see, what was that price at? Let's see, 119. Are we there yet? No. Maybe the 45. 116. Maybe the 1 hour. One of these is going to show it. There we go. So 120, about 57-ish. It's pretty close. So we can say that the 1 hour big bands is now the 6 hour short bands. Okay? But the inside of the 6 hour short bands is the 5 minute long bands. I know. Whew. So you're seeing 3 different scenarios coming in at once, which makes this so powerful. And it's still not sticking yet, right? It's still not sticking because I know it. You guys are looking at these candles, okay? But you have to remember there's a whole bunch of candles that one candle made on that 6 hour, okay? So if you can wrap your brain around that concept, then when you look at the 3 different scenarios, then you can see the short play, the medium play, and the long play all at once. And really the only way to get good at it is to practice, you know. I talk about paper trading, but even, you know, doing some real trades and stuff is going to get your learning curve up a lot faster. Because you're not going to want to lose money. So let's see if that makes sense. All right. So if we put a line here, so we have, let me remove all this crap so we're not confused. So we'll do 77, not that. Okay. So this is the inside of the short bands. Now we're going to go back to the 5 minutes. So the short band is like it's like the lowest low part, right? So this squeezed up a little bit, so it's a little harder to see, but we can see where the resistance is right now. Okay. So let's keep these two ranges here. All right, and see if we can manipulate it. I don't know if we can with the multiplier or not. Let me see. Let's see if we can manipulate it. There we go. So all right, so if you, sorry about that. So let's go back to the multiplier again. Okay, and we'll look at those two lines and see if we can get those two lines to fit in between the deviations. And there we go. So we can see how powerful this is becoming. Can you hear me now? Should be able to. So we can argue and say doing the multiple times 8 is looking at the middle and the short band. Would you say, why'd you do 80 times? I didn't do 80 times. I did 390 times 8. I never do 70 times anything or nothing. I always, I might have just did it really quick. So the short band's still there, okay? So what we're looking at is the medium, the main support for square, and it's about 90 bucks. Okay? So right now, you know, the short bands are showing us where it could possibly bounce again, you know. This is a lot smoother looking, right? You can see the difference of smoothness. And what I mean by smoothness is when we were looking at the 6-hour chart, the price was going like this, right? But see, now this is a lot smoother looking, so we can see where the rejections are. So that's the trick with using the multiplier, is it correlates with the higher time frames when you do it on a 5 minute. Which makes it so powerful because it's smoothing out the trade. And you're looking at where the resistance levels are. So there's a resistance level here, right? My stuff's lagging a little bit. And then there's another one right here, okay, where it's failing. So on the short bands, we're looking at the shorter trade going on, okay, where it's sort of been, if you could even say consolidation right through here. Okay. So then the question is, I see, but why was it showing? It wasn't. Just listen, okay? Like, pay attention. Look where it is right here. 390 times 8. Never says 8 times 70. So we can change this to 390, right? We can do that as well to see where another strong support is. We can do that. 70 is going to be a little shorter. It's a shorter play, but we could also put another line right through here for square. What we also see too is this could be the bounce place for it. If it breaks past this line, this price, it could bounce right here because there's that green deviation that could pick it up. Okay? So if we keep these lines here all together, and let's change the multiplier back to 1. And let's put this one back to 70. Okay. And then we'll go back to that 6-hour time chart. Boom, there's our play. Okay. Is it coming to fruition now? Is it making sense? So we have our play, we have our trade. So we're thinking, or I'm thinking, it's going to try to retest and maybe hit 101 or something today, possibly. Could consolidate, but eventually it's going to retrace down to maybe 96. And if it breaks that, then we're looking at, you know, $90. And if it breaks that, then 77 would be our next support. Because if you try to analyze this on a 5-minute chart, or I'm sorry, a 6-hour chart like it is right now, it's a lot harder to see the smoothness of the trade, right? You can't see all the other little trades going on in between. You just see a couple candles. So for a swing trade, you'd be fine. But if you were doing a day trade, you'd want to look at the 5-minute. And when you use the multiple, then you're looking at the 6-hour on the 5-minute. Does that make sense? No. The short, okay, so you never change, right? Like you want to keep one the same so you can like mentally not confuse yourself. Okay? Cuz you already know like your strong supports and resistance using the 390 or the 70. Okay? The 70 is going to show trend direction. The 390 is going to show the strong supports and resistance. Okay? So one of those needs to stay the same. Like you wouldn't go back. Let's just go back to that 5-minute again. You wouldn't do this. Okay. You wouldn't go here and see like 390 times 2 is 780. So you wouldn't put 780 down here. Okay. Even though it's gonna multiply it, which it did, and then do a multiplier right here, you can see it's gonna be the same. Boom. Right. And then if you hit it again, so, but you don't want to do it that way. You want to keep one at them at 390. Okay, so you can see those the logic, the support and resistance areas. So don't ever mess with this when you're doing your multiplier, right? Just well, I mean, like don't like change it. Either make it 390 or make it 70, if that makes sense. And then this one you just multiply up or down. Like you want to go 70 times 2 and 3 and 4. You want to do any of that. Just 390. So yeah, so that's basically the trick on using the multiplier. And once you get really good at it, you can start TAing charts fast. You know, if you're looking into getting into a particular trade, all you have to do is, you know, go through your scanner or whatever system you use for stocks, and then throw it up onto the ticker, and then do your TA that way. Okay. So the first thing you would do is you could go to the daily and see if it's rejecting anywhere. Okay. If there's any rejection levels. And then you go to like an 8 hour or 6 hour to see if it's in a channel. Okay. Which it is. And then you go to your lower time frame to plan your trade out for the day. Okay. So a good example of that is if I go to like NGL, which I traded this morning. I don't think I put it on my list on here. It's on my list on NAS or on Thinkorswim. Anyway, NGL did good today, right? It went up. I think it was 20%, like 6% or something. Okay, did really good. You know, I got in nice and early on it, nice and early. So it went up quite a bit. But the way I planned the trade out was on the daily. Okay, so the first thing I did was I, you know, put this back to 1. Okay, right here, and then you put this back to 70. Okay, this is default. And then we go to the daily. All right, so what I looked at was I noticed this was down here in the bottom. Okay, it wasn't like this. So I went back to the 5-minute to see if it, you know, if it made sense, right? So it was like, I can't remember now. The price was like down here somewhere. Okay. I think it was like right here or something. It was like in 1070. I'd have to look at my order, right? So it was right here somewhere. So it climbed up another $1.40 or whatever it was. And you can see that, you know, it needs to break, you know, its previous high, which was, you know, 1190. So it needs to break that, you know, and hit $12 basically. So it can be considered a bullish asset again. But we don't care. As day traders, we don't care. We're just trying to active trade this and make profit off it, and then we sell it. Okay? If it continues to keep going up, right, that would be launching into a swing trade. But, you know, when you get into swing trades or long-term trades, you really need to do your research. Okay? You need to make sure that they have strong earnings, that they're good with the SEC. Shout out to Tesla. All those are prime examples. Make sure they have good volume. Okay? Make sure the CEO hasn't killed anyone. Very important things if you're looking into a longer term trade. For instance, if we look at Coca-Cola, okay, everybody likes Coca-Cola. It's good, it tastes good, okay, it's not going anywhere. Even when, you know, people are self-conscious about their bodies, Coca-Cola's like, look, we'll do a Coke Zero, and there you go, you can keep drinking soda. Hooray, right? Now you get cancer. I don't know. But the thing is they made it they made it appealing even through this whole diet conquest that's going on right now in the world. So you can hold on to Coca-Cola. That's a blue chip. Okay. So you know, Starbucks, maybe, possibly, you know, they're still hanging out. Walmart, you know, just keep an eye on them. Don't just, you know, have them on your trades and forget about them. Don't do that. But know that it's a safer trade. And anybody who's like starting new, then, you know, you probably want to start doing index trading, right? Futures or something. So it's not as risky, right? The price doesn't drive up that high, but it's safer. You know, it's a long process. So anyway, with the NGL, so after I saw that it was not hitting any resistance in this area, I knew that it could go up, right? It had potential. The volume liquidity is very important. You want something with a decent amount of liquidity, just to get the ball rolling. If it doesn't have that much liquidity, it could be a long play. Okay, it could take a week to climb up $1. So we go up to the 5-minute again, okay, and let's say, you know, who knows where it was at the open. We can assume maybe somewhere. Let's say, what's today? 28th. So probably right there somewhere. Yeah, probably right there. So we'll put a mark. Maybe not. Right there. All right. So we'll put a mark. You know, as you can see, I already have my other mark set. Right. This is an active trade. Right now it's fighting this resistance, you know, on this band. If it can break through, then we can see, you know, 1170, 80, right? Maybe $12 in power hour. Lunch is kind of slow right now. Everything's kind of dropped down. You can see the volume's gone down a little bit. So maybe we'll see some more action at the end of the day. Anyways, for this particular trade, okay, what I was looking at was to make sure it was in the low areas on the green on the daily bands. Then I was looking on the 5-minute to make sure it was down as well. Because what if you were looking on the dailies and you see something like this, or it's in the green in the dailies, but it's up here in the red? Well, that means it's probably going to be a little bit of pullback first, and it might pull back and hit this VWAP and then go back up again. But this is, you know, it'd be pretty risky holding in this level. Okay. So the thing I did was, you know, of course I changed, you know, after I saw where it was at, then I wanted to see where my supports were. So of course I did the same thing. I put 390 and I went back and I did my multiplier. Okay. And I was just seeing if it was a real strong support, for that area. So it should start smoothing out. And smoothing out is holding on a support line. Okay, so that one kind of ran away from it. There we go. So 5 and I think 3 were both showing in that range. Okay, they were showing in that one deviation. That seemed like a pretty strong support. Okay, this is way underwater, so you know, this would be if you're visualizing, right? Just bear with me for a second. So if you're looking at this play right here, okay, let me remove this. If we're looking at this play, you see how the candles are all like weird looking sporadic because there's not a lot of volume yet. Okay. So if we're looking at this play, this is that one candle on the daily. You see what I'm saying? It should be. Let me see if I'm right. This is like one gigantic ass candle on the daily. Okay. So we have the multiplier set up pretty high. And what I'm looking at is I'm seeing how all this candle here is underwater, right? It's in this green range. So let's take it back to, let's just see if I'm right. I could be wrong, but it does look interesting. So let's take that back to 70. Let's go back to 390 times 1. Okay. Still got our big ass black block there. And then let's go back to the daily and see. Does it even show? Probably not. Damn. See if I can make that bigger. Where's my big ass candle? Let's see. It was like all through here or something, right? This was like all underwater. So let's go back to that daily again, see if we can see it. There we go. Well, that's not right. That's kind of, anyways, that's my thought process is on the daily it was showing underwater, right? It was showing in this, let me get rid of this. it was showing down in here. This is underwater. Okay. So it could also be a bad thing too, because if you bought right here, then you're underwater, then you have to wait for it to go back up, right, to breathe again. But the visualizing process, if we look at this part right here, okay, and then we go back to the 5 minute, we change the multiples again. I know. Steps, always steps. And whatever it was, I can't remember. Until we were back like in the dark, yeah, in the green. There we go. So this was like way in the green. So this whole play right here. Does that make sense? So this whole thing. So let me try that again with that block. Right? So this whole area is that green, is that candle. And it was all underwater through here. So this whole area right here was underwater. I'm going to keep saying it until you guys understand. Because it helps to see those. You can see the daily when you use the multiplier at that range. Okay? So if we do the same thing. We go back to our defaults. Josh, how you doing? You got it, coach? All right. Like, shut up. Shut up, Thomas. You're getting on our damn nerves. That's what my wife would say. So then we go back to the daily. And there's our candle. Ta-da! Pretty simple, right? So that block right there is the on the 5 minute, that's that whole trade. All through there. Okay. All right. So that's another trick you can do too if you want to look at to see if there's a good, you know, if you want to confirm it's a good idea to buy into a certain asset. If it's way underwater. So when we know that part, then we can do our next step and find out how long we can stay in this trade for. Okay. So we know, again, one more time, this was all underwater. This is that one candle on the daily. Now it's out. It's breathing. Okay. There's a little consolidation. The next thing we're looking at is the direction of the bands. Okay. So we're seeing that these bands are going down lower. So we might be getting to a point where this thing's going to pull back. Okay. Now we do still see that the buyers on the short time frame are still looking to try to push this price up. But the same description that we did last time with the bands, we see this area, where it's sort of going like this, and then it's probably going to start doing this pretty soon. So we need to start planning our trade. Right now it's slow, okay? This is that lunch time. Those fat guys like to eat for 2 hours. So it's a slow time. But when the power hour comes, it's possible we're going to see maybe a test through here, this would be our highest test of that $12. Okay, if it really wanted to go that high. But what you could do is put your stop loss, if you bought down, you know, wherever level that was, 1070. Your take profit could be right now, or you could put a stop loss right here, $11.10. That makes sense? So again, another powerful example of this multiplier. It just takes a little time to learn, and then once you figure it out, you'll start seeing all these plays from the daily on a 5-minute chart. So I think that's a pretty good stop for today. I think we really did touch base on this multiplier, and be sure to go back and look at the recording, or you know, look at the video on YouTube and replay it until you figure out how to get this thing done the right way. But I appreciate you guys sticking around, and good luck in the power hour if you are trading stocks, and if you're not, have a good day. Thank you.